Hi, I'm Professor Carrie Bettinger-López, and I'll be teaching International Human Rights Law in the spring as a 1L elective. And I'm here to tell you why you should take that class. International Human Rights Law is a fascinating class. It's one of the most recent developments in the law, and we will be looking at its historical origins as well as its contemporary manifestations in this class. It's a survey class that begins with the historical origins of human rights and looks at the historical origins as well as the contemporary manifestations in the first segment of the class, really digging into some of the theory behind international human rights law. In the second segment of the class, we move on to thinking about specific areas and themes. We look at issues such as human trafficking or refugees. We look at women's rights, racial justice issues. We look at the development of international criminal law. And then we move into the third section of the class. The third section focuses on regional human rights systems. So in the beginning, we'll have really focused on the United Nations as the foundational and the origin of many of our international human rights norms. And then we move into the regional systems, looking at the Inter-American human rights system, the European human rights system, and the African human rights system, where we will be looking at the corollaries between these regional systems and the United Nations. And then finally, we'll look at these issues in practice. We'll look at how we actually apply many of the principles that we learned about in practice into current day human rights lawyering. And so this gives you an opportunity as an emerging lawyer and hopefully an emerging human rights lawyer to think about how you might imagine yourself in this world of human rights. We look at human rights abroad as well as human rights in the United States, and we really focus on what it means to implement international human rights norms at the domestic level so that we're actually grounding these norms in the real lived lives of human rights victims and survivors, as well as affected individuals and communities. The class is evaluated through a variety of different mechanisms. Class participation is critical. We want to hear your voice and have you be a part of the classroom dialogue. And so classroom participation is valued in your grade. We also have a fun activity where each student is required to give a TED Talk, a small mini TED Talk we call it, and you'll be doing an accompanying paper where you flesh out some of the ideas in your TED Talk about any theme in human rights that's of interest to you. And then finally, there will be a final exam at the end of the semester that evaluates you on your understanding of the variety of themes that we've covered throughout the semester. You'll gain practical lawyering skills through this class, as well as theoretical doctrinal foundational skills that you would get in a classic doctrinal class in law school, because we'll be doing simulations and other activities that really allow you to kind of imagine yourself, again, as a human rights lawyer and put your skills into practice. So what kind of students should take this class? Well, anybody who's interested in international law or international human rights law should definitely consider taking this class. If you've lived abroad, if you've interacted with different United Nations or other foreign government agencies, these would be ways for you to really kind of ground a lot of the work from this class. Also, if you're interested in constitutional law or social justice, racial justice, women's rights, these are areas that we explore deeply and are interwoven throughout the class. Also, if you're interested in a human rights clinic, or any clinic for that matter, this is a class that will help to orient you to our way of thinking. I direct the Human Rights Clinic here at the law school, and I welcome you to consider taking the clinic. We accept 2Ls and 3Ls in the clinic, and the International Human Rights Law elective is actually a prerequisite to taking the Human Rights Clinic in your 2L and 3L year. So I welcome you to Miami Law, and I welcome you to my class in the spring. I look forward to seeing you there.